Hi everyone, thought I'd do another video. It's been a little while, so we've got a bit of a mixture of things this time. We've got a half workshop update, half project update, because there's lots going in and all at the same time at the moment. We're full of MGs. So first one we've been looking at here is this MGC. It's come in, the customer was concerned about heavy steering and was looking at a power steering upgrade. With usually when people complain of heavy steering and want a power steering upgrade, usually I say let's look at the car first, because there's often issues. MGCs, especially with the original steering wheels like this one, it's got a nice big wide steering wheel, it gives you plenty of leverage over the steering. That if you have heavy steering, there's normally a cause for it. So this car has actually had 3 or 4 different issues that were all adding up to making it really difficult. The steering rack was quite badly worn, so that's gone off to be refurbished. There was also no oil in it because the rubber gaiters are broken, all the oil had come out, so there was no oil in it. It was badly worn. The steering alignment was actually ½ an inch towing out rather than being near parallel. They're ever so slightly toe in, so really far out in the steering alignment. And also the tyres are really, really old. If we have a look at these, and the wrong size. If we have a look at this pair here. So this is the correct tyre size for an MGC. This is a 165/80/15, and this is what was fitted, which is a 185/70/15. Now, so there's 20 mil extra. That 185 rather than a 165 is an extra 2 centimeters of tread width, as well as these ones being 22 years old. So incredibly hard rubber. They hadn't perished because it had been stored fairly well out of sunlight. But so having got a wider contact patch is giving you more friction on the road as well. So at 22 years old, these tyres were due for replacement. But the right size, again, it will lighten the steering. Some suspension bushes are worn as well. These upper ones here, all kind of splayed out. MGCs have rubber bushes at the top and the bottom. And any wear in them affects the steering geometry and again contributes to heavy steering. So by going through all of these items, it'll all improve it. It may be that the customer still would like lighter steering again, but the thing to do is to return it to standard, correctly all set up right and adjusted right, and with the right tyre pressures. Again, the tyre pressures were low, so it will be a lot better, and they can try it as it should be. And then they can make a decision whether they want to spend the extra to have power steering. The other issue with this car is it's been stored a little while. It's got a quite good misfire. I've taken it up the road. It seems to have plenty of torque, but it's got a quite consistent misfire. So we'll look into that and see what we find. Other cars we've got in the workshop then, we've got this Roadster that's come off from Pembrokeshire. We've previously looked at this car last year and gone through the brakes and done a number of other upgrades, but we identified at the time that the compression was a bit low on the middle 2 cylinders. There was some pitting to the bores. It needed an engine refurbishment. In this instance, the customer's gone for a service exchange engine sourced through our local motor factor E&M. It's an Iversale engine. They do loads of classic engines for the likes of the MG Club and Moss, and they all really come from Iversale. So his old engine will get bolted into this cradle and sent away as an exchange unit. So this is completely gone through, unleaded, nice and quick, bolted in, away they go, and they're good performing, reliable engines. So that's that one. The blue Roadster then, that one, a misfire issue. We've replaced the electronic ignition. The electronic ignition system on it was a really early one. I think it was I'm going to say late 80s electronic ignition, and some of the ignition wiring was quite bad. So we sorted that out. I'll get that sorted so we can use it for the summer. And a few brakes adjustments and issues. The rear shoes, one of the rear shoes was upside down. They've been assembled incorrectly before. Find that does happen. Sometimes you put the springs the wrong way around, or in this case, the shoes upside down, because they do work the wrong way. It's just they work better when they're the right way up. So that's to be sorted, should be out later. Right, I think I've found the cause of the misfire, unfortunately. I was just doing the valve clearances here. So setting all the valve gaps between the rockers and the valves, which is part of the normal servicing routine. When I've taken the cover off, someone's broken this screw. There is, all the way around the cover, holes for the little screws to go. That are like that. Someone snapped the head off. Okay, fair enough. Not the end of the world. But they've obviously tried to use heat on it. And this valve spring, as a result, has lost all its tension. They've lost all the hardening. See, this one's totally solid. Can't twist it. Loads of tension on it. This one I can rotate, and it's lost so much tension. It moves up and down. So that valve is not going to be closing. It was giving me compression when I was turning it on the starter motor. So that, but when you're at a higher RPM, when the engine's running and or driving, that valve would have just been bouncing and not holding any compression. So odds are that's the issue. Not an easy fix. Also, whoever's been working on this was good at breaking bolts, because it's missing one there. That's broken off in the head. These are the ones that hold the rockers down to the top of the engine. There are lots of larger ones and lots of fixing, so I'm not quite so worried about that. But that's going to need to be repaired, unfortunately. Someone has really made a mess of that by blowtorching this so much. It's just completely taken all the hardening out of the spring. So yeah, after discovering that particular issue, we've now taken the head off. So that's gone off. Once we stripped the head down, the valve seats were good, and the head condition generally was pretty good, but it had a slight distortion. It was ever so slightly twisted. We've got long precision straight edges for measuring blocks and heads and things to make sure that they're dead straight, because with these is important. And the head needed machining, so that's gone off to SRM in Aberystwyth to be skimmed. And yeah, just waiting for that to come back. So we've got all the head components on the shelf that we can have a look at as well. So yeah, the bores look good, pistons look good. Nothing really untoward there, except that they had the valve issue. Someone had, we haven't finished cleaning this up yet, but someone had coated the head gasket with silicone sealant, which not ideal. They're meant to go straight onto bare metal. There's a lot, and we could see that this was crossfiring between the cylinders slightly. You can still see sort of a slight darkness here. We got this clean bit where the compression ring was sat, and this is all black. These two cylinders were actually crossfiring a little bit. I hadn't blown the gasket completely, but it was only a matter of time until it had blown. So it was going to need to be done at some point. With the head stripped and all the valves out, it's quite obvious the valve springs, comparatively speaking. So this is a healthy cylinder, a healthy pair of valve springs out of the head. And the ones that we'd identified that had been heat damaged, look how wonky they are. Well, the camera picked that up, but pretty good if I put them on here perhaps. You can see how much distortion getting them hot had caused. And I'd found that I could actually open this valve with the palm of my hand. I had no strength there at all. So probably what was happening is as the piston was coming down on the intake stroke, it was sucking this exhaust valve open. So there was hardly any charge in that cylinder, as well as it was probably bouncing because it had no tension. So I was able to get a complete set of valve springs very reasonably. So we'll just put a whole new set in. The adjoining valve spring to one that's really cooked, it's got some little bit of damage, but let's just sort that out. Yeah, so that's that really. Waiting on that to come back from the machine shop. We can put it back together. So on to our project MG then, the GT. Obviously there's the two aspects. The body is coming on, which I'll show you in a minute. This is how far we've got with the engine. Come back from the machine shop. The crank has been balanced along with the light and flywheel. The cylinder head has been had new valve seats put in it, and and it was skimmed. So there's new exhaust valves, new seats, and it was skimmed. So and I've put the valves back in, so that's ready to go back together again. The block, then the piston's back in, the cam's back in, and what I'm doing here with the dial gauge is making sure that the cam timing is absolutely bang on. We had that issue before with the worn cam pulley on the chain, so I've got another pulley on there, and basically the cam and the crank have two dots on it. Usually when you assemble them, you line the two dots up, do the nuts up. I'm a little bit more fussy with these to make sure you get every last bit of performance out of it. You can use a dial gauge and measure the degrees from TDC that the cam opens cylinder 1 inlet valve. If you need to make adjustments, you can get offset Woodruff keys, which I'll show you in a second, which have a very slight offset in the tooth. And that means you can vary the cam pulley very, very slightly you can get lots of different keys, 1 all the way up to something like 7 or 8, one way or another, so you can make fine adjustments. The way I measure it then is with the DCI gauge, and then I put a cam disc behind it. I use the gauge first of all to accurately pinpoint when the piston is all the way at the top of the cylinder, and then So I line it up with the edge of the chain. So TDC. I usually hold the chain tight with my finger just to ensure that it all moves correctly, and it should be 108 degrees. I have to look it up every time. I can remember it's 108, 110 in the middle of the opening. But if you watch this gauge as it goes round, you can measure when it's at the very top, it starts to go back the other way. So you're looking for that highest point of the gauge, and in actual fact it stops because you get a moment of dwell. So you measure on the disc when it reaches that highest point and when it starts to fall from that highest point, and the middle of that is your figure, and so you can adjust that very, very finely to get the last possible horsepower out of the engine. It will run absolutely fine, 2 dots lined up, but if you want to get the absolute optimum out of it, that's the way to do it. If we go and have a quick look at the body then, just to show you where we've got to with that since the last video. There's been a lot of cutting and welding. We've got new floor pan in now. There's been a lot of sort of external repairs, new pieces put into poor areas around the scuttle, etc. New spring hanger and reinforcement plate. So there's all sort of the corners you've got to do before you start to line the sill up. This still isn't actually, this inner section isn't welded in yet. It's in just for alignment purposes. So what we've done is we've welded the castle rail to the inner because they all line up along the edge, and we're just offering them all up, making sure we've got all the lines straight, because you want good door shuts, and now is how you achieve them, in making sure that everything lines up and is straight. If I find the sill piece. So then this piece will go up here. I can get it in without many hands. So it's probably a bit more what you're used to seeing, this curved outer section. There'll be some squeezing and pinching and reshaping, but it's coming together. So this side is looking a bit more MGB-ish, and once we've done the other side, we can replace this cross beam, which is looking pretty rubbish, and it'll start to come together. And then the rear arches, etc. So we're picking away at it, a side at a time. Quite a lot of welding on this, a bit more than we were hoping for, but truth be told, any car that you think is good and then you get sandblasted, it's always worse than you think. So we decided to carry on with what we had because we knew what it was. Yeah, just lots of welding and lots of grinding. but it will be nice and strong, all lined up. It just takes a lot of time, but we'll get there. We'll get there. So once the engine's done, it can come off the stand, we can get on with other engines and other work, and as and when we can carry on with this. Yeah, so we've had a big panel delivery as well, including some nice rear arches, some heritage arches, along with obviously the sills and floors and everything. And so a big shout out to Moss Bristol, who have sorted us out a cracking deal on a load of panels. So if you're doing a big restoration, give them a shout, and the more, they can help you if you're doing a big order. But doing this with these panels, rather than patching and chopping out and making little repairs, yes, these panels, on the face of them look expensive, but not when you start working out how long it's going to take you. In actual fact, chopping all this out and putting in a nice new panel, it's got a nice crisp line, all the spot welds in the right place, it's going to be a much, much tidier job, and it will last. So that's the aim of this restoration, is to do the job well. So yeah, thanks to Moss. Hope that's interesting. Like, share, subscribe, all those things. Cheers. Bye.